Welcome to JohnsTarot. This isn't fortune telling, it isn't prediction, and it isn't about escaping the ordinary. This is a space where we slow down long enough to notice structure in our lives, in our history, and in ourselves. The symbols don't tell us what to do. They give us a place to land for meeting. And here we explore the maps. Tarot, the I Ching, the runes, not as authorities, but as mirrors. What emerges is already there. We're just learning to see it more clearly. If you're walking your own path of integration, if you're caring less than you used to, or if you're simply curious about how structure becomes alive, you're in the right place. Let's begin. Hi, welcome to JohnsTarot. This is the first video I have done in a while, so this podcast will be available on video. I'm going to continue today on my topic of systems management. Today's topic will be on how systems are transferred through multi-generational families. I certainly had that experience where a system and a field was transferred through my family to me, and it was a dysregulated field. And I kind of carried that on without knowledge. Now, when I finished I resolved most of that. In fact, I thought I had resolved all of it. But when I finished the Soul Awakening series, I kind of had a full-on conclusion to that in my life. I saw it for what it was, and I brought it to conclusion. And I had this multi-generational field come to an end, something that was handed to me through my parents. I thought I was uniquely flawed, that my problems, although of my own making, I thought were my own. But there was more to it than that. There was something deeper than that. Now, I had been aware for a long time that sometimes alcoholism and these kind of problems are handed down multi-generational, and that you're handed them, and that you pick them up, and that they continue. But this is a deeper examination of how that takes place. So I have prepared a little presentation. I hope you'll enjoy my little presentation, and it just frames the whole issue in regards to systems management, or I put it into a systems type of definition. So if you are having these kind of problems, if you've had these kind of problems, say you're in recovery, say you've come from a dysregulated field, is what I tend to call it now, where you've had things were handed to you that were not of your own making, I hope this is helpful and supplies you a deeper understanding of what has been going on with you. So I hope you enjoyed the presentation. I hope you enjoy my little video, my little presentation today. If you're just getting this on the podcast, that's okay. You don't need the video. I have the Mandelbot background, and I just thought it would be funny and appropriate for this topic. So let me proceed with my prepared presentation. There's a fact that's well established in psychology, though it's not widely absorbed in everyday culture. Dysfunctional patterns are transmitted through generations. This isn't a metaphor. It's not symbolic language. It's observable, repeatable, and documented. In family systems psychology, addiction, emotional shutdown, chronic anxiety, and relational chaos are not viewed as isolated personal failures. They're viewed as patterns moving through a system, much like stress moves through a body. If those patterns are not resolved, they don't disappear, they reappear, often in a slightly altered form, often in the next generation. A parent drinks, a child doesn't drink, but becomes hypervigilant, controlling, or emotionally absent. The form changes, the nervous system pattern remains. What's being transmitted isn't just behavior, it's how the nervous system learned to survive. And this is where it gets uncomfortable for our culture, because the popular narrative is individualistic. Fix yourself, make better choices, Don't repeat the past. And this is where I fell into it. I thought I thought I was uniquely flawed and that it was all my responsibility. But there was more to it than that. Because systems theory says something's more sobering and more compassionate. You may be carrying unresolved material that did not originate with you. That doesn't mean you're doomed. It means the work you're doing may not be just for you. In some families, one person becomes capable of holding what others couldn't. They become the one who stays conscious long enough for the patterns to stop. Not through heroics, not through force, but through seeing clearly, staying present, and not passing it on. And that's kind of what happened to me. In older cultures, this kind of burden was sometimes described mythically as a curse, a spirit, or karma moving through a lineage. Modern psychology strips away the myth and leaves us with something more precise. Unresolved grief, chronic fear, unspoken shame, unprocessed trauma. These things don't vanish with time. They vanish with integration, and that's the key. Here's the quieter relief in all of this. When a pattern is fully seen and metabolized, it no longer needs to repeat. Sometimes with you. And if that's the case, the lightness you feel afterward isn't imaginary. It's a nervous system recognizing that it no longer has to carry what was never meant to be carried forever. Everything I've just described can sound abstract, like something you read in a psychology book. But for me, this didn't arrive as an idea. It arrived as recognition. After years of actual work, recovery work, service, showing up in uncomfortable places, and living a sober life, and then, more recently, through the experience of producing this awakening series, something became visible that I hadn't fully seen before. I realized I hadn't just been working on my life. I've been carrying material that moved through my family system long before I arrived. Patterns of addiction, patterns of emotional silence, patterns of endurance without relief. I don't say that to elevate myself or dramatize anything. In family systems, this is common. One person becomes capable of holding what others couldn't, often because circumstances force it early. What changed wasn't the work itself. The work had been happening for decades. What changed was my awareness. The series acted like a lens. By laying things out, threshold, maps, integration, I could finally see the pattern as a pattern, not as a personal defect. And once it was seen clearly, something surprising happened. It let go. Not all at once, not theoretically, but in a way that felt like a system standing down after a long emergency. There was a lightness that followed, not euphoria, not relief, more like quiet, the kind that comes when something no longer needs to repeat. And that's when I understood. Sometimes awakening isn't about becoming. It's more about finishing something. And that's kind of what happened to me. It was kind of strange. And also at the end of the Awakening series, I had a series of events that happened. The system itself flared and showed itself. My brother called me up and we did a FaceTime, and he discussed family history, which wasn't particularly flattering, but I could clearly see how dysregulation had been running through my family for generations. And my brother revealed things that would happen in both sides of the lineage, both in my father's lineage and in my mother's lineage. And these things, were passed on to me, and I wasn't aware of it. And I was carrying undue heavy bondage or undue heavy weight that wasn't mine to carry, but was mine to resolve. And that's what I did. My brother in this family system went on to, He didn't repeat the pattern, but he created a carrying on of the lineage. It was up to me to put an end to the repeatable pattern, and that's what I did. And that's when my brother revealed to me what our family history was like, what occurred to me. And it was the last flare of the system showing itself to me, and I resolved it in my life. Through the work I did in recovery, and through the work I did in the Soul Awakening series. So I hope you enjoyed my little investigation. We could take a look at it. We could do a little tarot reading on it. Let's take a look and see what the tarot has to say about resolving multi-generational dysregulated fields that are passed on through families. Well, I hope you enjoyed my little presentation. In past episodes, I've done something like I did during the series where it was threshold map integration. I might as well go ahead and continue that, and we'll do a little integration. And what I'll do is I will provide you a free tarot spread in order to take a look at these topics. This is not part of the Soul Awakening series. This is just part of what I do on John's Tarot. I'm going to give you a little free tarot spread. Okay. My ability to read tarot is a gift, an expression of divine love, and I'm here to share it with you in that same spirit. So in terms of a free tarot spread, this tarot spread it's about recognizing when a system has finished teaching whatever it is it needed to teach. And for me, tarot isn't mystical. It's a way of slowing down the mind enough for patterns to become visible. And once something is fully seen, it often lets go. So we're just going to take a look. Let's see. Let's do a ancestral field tarot reading. And for me, this is for my ancestral field that I experienced, and then I had the opportunity to let go of. And that, what was funny about the whole thing was that when the system flared at the end of the process, this didn't happen. That didn't happen in my mind, in imaginary spaces. It happened live. That manifested in the actual universe. My brother contacted me. We reviewed his genealogical information, and he told me what was going on with our past history. And bing, a little light came on for me.
What we've got here is failure to communicate.
So, should we get this here? There we go. So it manifests in real time. It's not just imagination. So let's do a little ancestral reading for me. How these dysregulated fields were passed down. Do a little ancestral field reading for me. Whoops. Sometimes I drop the cards. A little ancestral field reading for me. This is a 7-card spread. All right, that's good. And let's see what we get. My first card. What unresolved pattern entered my family system? It's not a person. It's not blame. The emotional weather that set everything in motion. The event often shows up as chronic fear, scarcity, loss, dislocation, survival at all costs. And that's how these things really appear. My past family members they were up against survival issues. Okay, so let's go ahead and lay out the cards. My first card, ancestral field. What unresolved pattern entered the family system? And that's the 7 of Swords. Whoops, there we go. The 7 of Swords. And that usually has to do with dishonesty, cheating, stealing, and also has to do with seeing an opportunity nobody else has seen. So at some level in my family history, there was some kind of dishonesty, and that was the unresolved pattern that entered the family system. And it had probably more had to do with survival. If we look back, 50, 60 years, more than that, heck, I'm that old. But we're looking back 100 years. That my family system was really suffering for survival, and they would do whatever, and there was nothing wrong with anything they did in order to survive, and that's just how they looked at it. First transmission. How did this pattern adapt in the previous generation? That would be my mother, my father. And I already know. Where is coping strategies formed? Did it form as coping strategy in the form of addiction, control, emotional shutdown, overfunctioning, silence? Let's see what the card is. The Lovers. How did this? Well, certainly it became in my past family history. It was passed down to me. There was alcoholism, addiction, and things like that in my past family history. How does that represented in the Lovers? It has to do with if I had to make an association. Oh, this is okay. In terms of this has been going on in my family for a long time. Because what this card generally has to do with is conscious, subconscious, superconscious. So this is the pattern. This is the maladaptive pattern coming through my family system. And it came to me through my subconscious. And then in my conscious, it metabolized or materialized as my own poor behaviors. I'm coming up on 37 years of sobriety. I'm not there yet. I'm coming up on it. And it appeared as addiction. How did this first appear in this pattern adapt in the previous generation? It adapted as addiction. Certainly my father had it, and apparently, and on my mother's side, there was other issues that it appeared. It had to do with control and addiction on that side of the family too. So then the third card, the barrier, the burden carrier. How did this land in me? Well, I already talked about that a little bit. There I am. The Chariot. How did this appear in me? Why you felt different? Why you carried more responsibility? Why you became the container? Why did I become the container? And I talked about that because I had the capacity to become the container. I had the capacity to hold it and look at it. And also in my history, I had different symbolic vehicles in order to help me reorient. I had the Taoism, the I Ching, I was a Buddhist, and I had those types of different things in the past. My past family history, they didn't have those things available. I also had a 12-step program, and I had all these different vehicles to help me reorient and to take a look at that. And I had the ability to hold these different things, and which allowed me to be a little different than my past, than my family. What did it cost me to carry this unconsciously? This is an important card. The Death card. So what did it cost me? To get past it. It cost me a death of identity. It cost me a death of the family system. It caused me the death of relationships. It caused me, like I said, the biggest thing was the death of identity, fatigue, hypervigilance, addiction. I carried a lot in terms of addiction, isolation. I had been isolated, delayed joy. There was a lot of that type of thing. And what did it cost me to carry this unconsciously? That's a very appropriate card, the Death card. So now I am on the fifth card, the Awakening point. What allowed the pattern to become visible? Oh, the Devil card. So what allowed it to become visible? I had the addiction thing going on. There was drugs and alcohol. And that is really what allowed it to become visible. The Devil card, the things in my life that made me feel bad about myself. And it talks about the awakening. What allowed it to become visible was really damaging things that were happening in my life. Recovery, crisis, that allowed it to become visible because I didn't have this awakening because I was leading a perfectly balanced life. I had a bit of an awakening because it was absolutely necessary for my survival. I was kind of forced into it. I had a threshold experience. And the creative work. My threshold experience was, of course, getting sober. When I was willing to let go of everything in order to search into a new way of life and a new way of being. And that was my threshold experience. I had the calling, and then the threshold was that entering the 12-step program and trusting that everything is going to work out. And I knew, I've been thinking about this lately, I knew at that time that there was no going back. At my threshold experience, I could either accept the path that was being offered, being, that path of sobriety, or I could go back to my old way, and I knew that meant certain death. So it wasn't out of any sense of moral superiority that I got sober. It was fear of dying, and that was the awakening point for me. And that was sixth card, integration phase. What happens when the pattern is fully metabolized? I hope this comes out well. Oh, the 7. I had a little glitch there. What happens when the pattern is fully metabolized? That is the 7 of Pentacles. We'll fix this up with some editing. When it's fully metabolized, it talks about boundary, simplicity, dignity, quiet authority, rest. But it was a process. It didn't just happen fully. Like I said, I'm coming up on 37 years of sobriety. It's been a long process. It wasn't one blinding event that brought it all to my consciousness. It had been going on throughout my long period of sobriety and work and service and work I've done with the steps, work I've done with the tarot, work I've done with other symbolic methods that brought this to the surface. And what happens when the pattern is fully, this is the integration phase. What happens when the pattern is fully metabolized? I just felt more whole. I felt lighter. I felt a little bit of resentment, actually, that I had to be the container for all the family trash pile. But I was the only one who was able to hold those ideas, to hold the concepts and look at it. I hopefully, in a spiritual sense, I hope my ancestors are happy that they are freed from what they passed on to me and they can move on. And in my own life, I just feel lighter. It makes more sense. And it just makes an easier life path for me. And then the 7th card, the inheritance forward, what no longer needs to be passed on. I already know that. And then the card is, the world. How interesting is that, the way these cards come out? The world is the end of a cycle, the end of a long cycle, the end of a long repeating cycle. I don't know how many generations this went back. I traced it back to the 1900s when the family came over from Europe. But it's the end of a cycle, and it all made sense to me. Once I saw the cycle, once I saw the system, and once I saw for what it was, and once I saw the dysregulated fields, how those manifested throughout my family history, it all made sense to me. And then how my own life had to be the one where it all came to a head, where now the system is no longer transmitted to the next generation. It all made sense, and it was the end of a cycle. It was the end of a long cycle, and that's the World card. So,
Goodbye, Professor Marvel, and thanks a lot!
Well, it was my pleasure. I hope you enjoyed my little podcast for this week. If you have an idea for other topics, let me know. I have some ideas for topics moving forward. Let me see. Have you found the systems of management topic interesting? It's been an interesting journey for me. I did not know that these things coexisted as almost as life forms occupying the same space that I do, almost as they're like artificial life forms, and they occupy the same space as I do, and I've been totally unaware of it. And as I increase my knowledge and my awareness of these systems, I see how they coexist right next to us, so we don't even realize it. And they exist. They have properties which are very similar to living organisms. So it's been very fascinating for me. So until next week, be careful, be cool, be kind, and remember, have courage, find faith, and I will see you all again next week. Okay, bye-bye. Have a great week.